Everyone loves a good magic trick, whether it is done by a friend, a street performer, or world renowned experts on the big stage. There is something about sleight of hand, illusion, trickery, and deception that leaves us mesmerized and transfixed, and our brains scrambling to try and make sense of what had just occurred before our very eyes. Amidst the smoke and mirrors of illusion and the spectacle of the performance, it is easy to forget that magic has the potential to become very dangerous and that every performance has the potential to end in disaster. Cars crash. Carr the Mysterious, otherwise known as Charles Rowan, was a South African escape artist who achieved local and regional fame in the 1920s and the 1930s by engaging in high risk stunts and escaping death every time. In an effort to make a bigger name for himself, Carr sought to perform an especially dangerous trick during one of his shows. Tied up in a straitjacket, he would aim to escape the path of a speeding car that was heading right towards him. With the driver of said car accelerating at a speed of 72 miles per hour, Carr was only left with 15 seconds to escape the straitjacket, but was too slow. In front of a crowd of 1,000 people, including children, the performer was hit by the car, briefly flying backwards in the air before landing on the ground with great force. The impact left his body mangled and his legs requiring amputation. While in the hospital, Carr remarkably forgave the driver for what had occurred and absolved him of any wrongdoing before succumbing to his injuries and passing away. Hit me with your best shot. Of all the tricks that a magician can perform, none are as more dangerous than the infamous bullet catch. It involves a gunshot being faked and the performer pretending to be shot, only to reveal that they managed to catch a speeding bullet, often between their teeth, even though no bullet was ever fired at all. This trick has claimed the lives of over 15 performers over the last 100 years, but perhaps the most notable death associated with the bullet catch occurred in November of 1820 when a Polish magician and his wife performed the trick in front of a prince in Prussia or northern Germany. Madame Dolinsky was to be shot in front of a firing squad of 6 men, stopping all 6 bullets. But when the soldiers were loading their rifle muskets before showtime, one of the soldiers accidentally loaded a live round instead of a blank. On stage, Madame Dolinsky was shot through the stomach and passed away 2 days later. This resulted in her husband going insane from grief, and he was eventually institutionalized. The Graveyard. Benjamin Rucker was an African American illusionist who performed under the name of Black Herman in the American South in the 1930s. He demonstrated what he referred to as magical secrets that he was shown by voodoo witch doctors from Haiti and shamans from Africa for his predominantly African American audiences. In his signature trick, Black Herman would enthrall his audiences by being buried alive. He claimed to be immortal and the descendant of the prophet Moses and claimed that there was no grave that could hold him. This trick called for Rucker to be laid to rest in an outdoor area known as Black Herman's private graveyard. He would be buried for 3 days, and on the third day, he would be exhumed, still be alive, and continue the show. Due to his reputation, no one believed that Rucker was actually struck dead after he suffered a heart attack at the end of one of his shows in April of 1934. Audiences were so morbidly curious as to Rucker's true fate that Black Herman's assistant charged an entry fee to his funeral so that people could actually see that Black Herman was indeed dead. Trapped inside, 32-year-old Joseph Amazing Joe Burris had one lifelong dream, and that was to become more famous than his hero, Harry Houdini. On the 100th anniversary of Houdini's death on Halloween night of 1992, he attempted an escape which even Houdini himself had failed at, being buried alive and escaping. Burris had himself chained and then locked up in a homemade wooden coffin and then buried in a grave, on top of which 7 feet of dirt and quick hardening cement was poured. If he was to survive, Burris would need to break out of his wooden coffin and dig to the very top before running out of oxygen. Unfortunately, time was not to be a problem for Burris, as the dirt and cement on top of him instantly collapsed and crushed him to death. Still alive, Washington Irving Bishop was born to a deeply spiritual family as the skeptical son of a practicing medium, leading him to work for a psychic as an attempt to expose the profession's fraudulent tricks. Bishop eventually learned all of the secrets of the trade and gave up exposing false mediums to become a medium himself, freely admitting to his audiences that he had no supernatural powers whatsoever. Instead, Bishop rose to local fame by holding the hand of an audience member and asking a series of questions where he would sense acute muscle, eye movements, perspiration, and so on as a way to tell about the participants' honesty in answering the questions. On May 12, 1889, while performing on stage in New York City, Bishop fell unconscious, suffering from catalepsy, a condition which causes a person to become unconscious for a extended period of time, which is then followed by the body becoming stiff and rigid, almost as if he was dead. He awoke a short time afterwards, asking to finish the show before falling out of consciousness forever. Some, including his own mother, allege that it was the autopsy that was performed on him that killed him. He was in a comatose state and was still alive.